give to the first one? Okay, you want to be an entrepreneur? Get prepared. Half an hour a day, not 5 minutes during the weekend. So if this is what you want, half an hour a day, it's not so much. And there is a lot to learn that you don't know, that's for sure, because nobody is really prepared for that, even me. I'm doing that for 21 years. I'm reading anytime I can, during vacation, during transportation, listening to podcasts. So we continuously learn. So that's my first main advice. And then it's definitively talk to people who went to the journey and get inspired from them, get advice as much as possible. I used to say the mirroring effect.
In this episode, we dive into the fascinating world of AI and its impact on the business environment. Our guest shares insights on how AI is shaping the future of work and discuss the importance of adapting and learning to use it effectively, and why continuously learning is so crucial, and how to avoid burning out and losing our focus. So let's tune in. Xavier, thank you very much for joining the podcast. I'm really happy to see you here.
Thank you, Serge, for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
First of all, I would like to ask you about your story as an entrepreneur. How did you get here and what was the path?
It's interesting because I have started for almost 10 years within a very big company, Électricité de France, EDF. At that, what we used to call the golden chain, which means you don't want, it's very difficult to even consider that you could start a company or start an entrepreneurial life. Well, you get married, you get this golden chain, you get children, but during an interview, I had one guy who told me, what do you want to do in your life? And I said, I want to be a business developer or entrepreneur. And he told me very simple advice which changed my life. And I give it to many young guys. He said, if that's what you want, get prepared. Half an hour a day. And I start to get prepared for that. And so to get prepared for an entrepreneur, it's a complex task. You have to read books and work all kind of stuff. But it changed my mentality, and step by step. So the first step I did was to leave EDF to an American big company, and completely change my life, change my job from R&D to sales, which was quite bold at that time. And my chance is after 1 year I've been fired, at the same time as 10,000 people, because the merger failed between G and Honeywell. And then I realized, okay, now I want to start a new company. And so it was in 2001. So it took me a few months to people the good way to do it. But finally in 2002, so 21 years ago, I have started my first startup in renewables.
And if we narrow down this preparation to entrepreneurship, what 2-3 books you would recommend for the people who would like to become an entrepreneur?
Difficult question. So there is a in the I like, but there is plenty of good books. But what I would recommend is, as an entrepreneur, you need to master buying, selling. You need to, if you are a tech company, you need to master product, finance. I have been very disappointed by a book who said, okay, that's the advice to start a startup, because typically, even so they have a broad overview, at the end you learn very few. It's better to try to read 1 or 2 books in each of these 4 or 5 very key stuff, because you need to understand. Even so, at some point you will delegate. You need to understand how sales works, how finance works. And
if we will sum up, learn sales skills, 1-2 books, and practice it as much as possible. Second, I guess it's marketing.
Yes.
Correct? To learn at least bits of marketing to understand how it works. Financial part, because if you're going to build a business, you definitely need to do something in financial accounting and so on and so forth. So at least to be positive. And a product was another point, correct?
Buying, could buy something which is underrated. And because to buy correctly is as selling. It's the same coin, two face. One is buying, one is selling. If you understand both sides, you are stronger.
Especially if we're talking about the hardware companies, I think it's like crucial.
Yes.
Part.
So depending on, of course, on these 5-6 key stuff, depending on if you are very tech, if you are, let's say, tech in the sense of digital, then the product will be key. My first startup was, let's say, the old way, but you need that because we were building power plants in biogas. So for me, buying was really key. At the end of our journey, we were buying 10 million euro a year. So that was really key. But now I'm more in it's my third startup. The second and the third one are really digital. So now what is key is IT, is product, and finance is always important, if not key.
Do you have any co-founders or you rule solo?
No, I always start with 3 co-founders. Well,
3.
I would say it's very difficult to find the right co-founder, and the journey has been always pretty tough for me. For my 2 from startup, now it's a complete different game because I knew very well my other co-founder because they are my sons, and we work very well together. We are very complementary. So we are doing a quite incredible team.
It's very interesting. But I would like to come back a bit. Then we will talk about family business because I'm very curious about this. If we're talking about finding the right co-founder, what advice would you give? First of all, about the personality. Second, how to distribute the roles within the team.
My personal observation, let's say it's not 100%, but in the co-founding team, you need somebody who has the capability to sell. If he has not demonstrated in the past that he was not a good seller, no problem if he can acquire this capability. Because at the beginning, the co-founder are the one who sells, and until you reach the capability to scale and so on, you are the one who sell. And many times I see co-founding team without this capability, and it's for them very complex to make it, if not impossible. So that's, I would say, first observation, first advice. Then after that, it's really a matter of being complementary. It's one of the difficulty if you have co-founder who are doing the same stuff, then the friction starts. And in that case, the best is as much as possible to try to define an ownership quite clearly in between co-founder. So of course, if the ownership right from the beginning, if you are a tech guy, a sales guy, a marketing guy, and then you have no problem because they are very complementary. But I would say you need a sales. Probably you need somebody quite good at raising money. Again, it's very different to raise money than to manage the finance. Complete different skills. And I'm pretty sure some people think if you are good in raising money, you should be very good in accounts. Not true at all. Accounts is very specific. I would try narrow-minded.
It's closer to the sale because it's very similar approach, but in a bit different scale.
Completely agree.
Not to the finance.
So I would say you need somebody who is good in raising money. You need somebody which is good in sales, and then 1 or 2 key stuff, and the rest you will hire on the spot.
So the key point is the sales, because without sales, any organization will die. And also to do the complementary skills. So your team should do the different things to create synergy and move.
Exactly. So one potential mistake as co-founder is to have clone. Like you are from the same school, you think the same, and you have the same capability. Wrong choice. But you could be from the same school and have completely different skills. No problem.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Xavier. I totally agree here. And let's move on to the family business because it's a really interesting approach. Very unusual because I hear a lot of stuff like it's so hard to work with the wife or with the husband or with the brother because it's business and is somehow connected with the money. Some problems can occur. So how do you do this? How do you manage this? And also, how do you distribute the roles between you and yours?
So I guess it's the same as with a normal co-founder. So you need huge trust, and you need, in a way, a clear separation and ownership. So for us, we had one is the CTO, so it's quite clear of what he's doing, and we are quite lucky because he's an exceptional CTO. Then, and that's Baptiste, and then Matthew is really doing so the product, the marketing, and the sale, which is a lot.
3 roles.
But at the beginning, that's what you have to do, of course.
No, believe me, it's okay. I just fix the room.
And so for me, it's really raising the money, and so I'm helping in the sales, but let's say I'm not in charge. And so I'm doing a lot of like now with and PR and with the press and so on. So taking a lot of time, but bringing a lot of leads.
So and which channels do you use?
So we are really omni-channel as much as possible. And so we are good in SEO, SEA, definitively, for a very cheap amount of money. LinkedIn, everybody talk about LinkedIn. It works, but you have to spend time on it. So for the SEO, we take it very seriously, writing an article every week. And so there is nothing freelance. You have to for the results, of course. But then let's say we do the classic stuff, emailing and outbound call.
Do you participate in some activities?
Yes. So this year we did quite a lot, 6 or 7.
And which one was the best?
The Belgium one. So they are not very known yet, but for we are sales, because our tools is great for everybody, but it's particularly great for sales people. And so they have launched the first conference exclusively for sales. And since, let's say, we are in Brussels, lots of people speak Netherlands, and they were quite amazed at the quality of our translation and so on, and summaries. So it was quite good. But then we had a very surprising success at the big French event on the tech, Vivatech. But there is actually a small group of medium and big size companies who are touring the fair, and they have people, guide, who introduce them to the most promising startup. And we had many guide who have spotted us and said, okay, that's the future. So we had lots of visits, and to be honest, the stand around us were quite jealous because we had so much attention. But yeah, it was really interesting to get the feedback. The salon really gave us the feedback on our tools on a bigger organization. That's pretty amazing.
What do you do in the conference in terms of like sales, marketing, that so much people was at your booth? So what you done? You entertained a lot of nice girls. So
no, at the beginning there are just like 1 or 2 guides who have spotted us in advance. So we knew in advance that we would add some large group together. But afterwards, just by discussing with the guide, so we actually actively talk to the guide, and they say, okay, what you do are really interesting. Okay, I'm coming this afternoon, I'm coming tomorrow. So we increased from a few tours who had spotted us to a lot of tours who have spotted. So that's because it's a very special, I don't know if you have seen, the way the salon is done is completely different from the other salon where you are at your booth and you wait for people to come. Here, you are at your booth, of course, you wait for people to come. But there is lots of organized tour. You have to be spotted as one of the promising startup, and then you have a lot of.
I think we did small mistake. We didn't introduce your product. So let's begin. Let's fill this gap. Can you describe your product, your solution, what you're doing currently, like what benefit it provides to the people, to the organizations, and how?
Okay. The little story is our second startup with Baptiste and Matthew. We sold our shares 2 years ago, and we were looking for a new challenge. And so we have noticed that we had one of our big challenge during the last term. We had 20 sales and 5-10 people in CSM and doing customer support. But the main challenge was memorization of the phone, filling the CRM and so on, and how to capture the best practice. So then we realized that this business already had software as a service, very developed in US. It was a $500 million a year already with a champion like Gong or Chorus. And so we said, okay, we don't want to do the same stuff. What we want to do is to prepare for the future. And the future for us was the summarization, the capability to prepare email, to analyze what is said in so we actually searched who can do that right now. So we found ChatGPT-2 and a few other tools. At that time, nobody could imagine what would happen several months later. But we said, okay, that's the future. It will be one day ready for sure, because in English, the summary was not so bad, not so good. But in French, it was very bad. And then other, like in Netherlands, it was nowhere. In Dutch, it was nowhere. So we decide, okay, let's build a platform which is as good as the state of the art, but get prepared for the summarization and email. We even hired somebody expert in LLM. So when that happened, end of November last year, big date for everybody who is following AI, we were ready at that. So surprisingly enough, our platform was probably one of the first of the world, maybe the top two, who had a summary already end of the last year ready for our customers. And from that time, so we were able to build many features like the summary instant recognition in many languages. And now we are working on AI coaching, and we are very integrated in many platforms. So any conversation you have with Teams, Google Meet, Zoom, if you are the owner of the conversation, if you are invited, so we have bots who really take notes for you. And in an instant, you get on your instant means 2-3 minutes at the end of the meeting, you have an email, or it is in your CRM with the list of actions to do summary. So it's really one of the few tools on productivity which change your life. And everybody's talking about, okay, AI is incredible, you can do this and that, but you have to do it by hands. You do it, it's fun, 1, 2, 3 times, and then you stop doing it. Here, we really automatize something which is in the heart of nearly of most of the people, the meetings. So you don't lose information and you save time and you can work in team. So now that's why I love what I do. First, we are really bringing a collaborative tool. So it's not only you save time, you work as a team. And we see in some organization, we really change even the spirit of the team.
Interesting. Can you give a bit more details in this part? Like, how does it affect the team?
Because typically, if you have a sales team, people will tend to work more individually, keep secret good ideas and so on. Then when you bring Leexi, your sales team will have access to all the conversation. And instead of keeping, let's say, for your small discover or your trick, then they are open to everybody. And then what happens is completely different. You ask for advice, you share your best tricks, and then instead of working alone, you work as a team, and you realize that for team which have bonus, you get better bonus just because you are better. And that's an example for the sales team, but of course it works the same for if you are a consultant and you are working on the same projects, then you just cry because you don't have access to what happened to the other part of the project, or you have missed a meeting and so on. And then all of a sudden, everything is shared, very structured, very open, and so of course, very different spirit.
It's very interesting, because I also see one more application, because always there is a rotation within the sales team, in long term. So in this case, it's also a very good base for learning base. So where all the newcomers can look into for the best practices, how are the best performing sales doing this, and so on and so forth. So it's amazing.
I completely confirm that, because in my previous company where we had 20 sales, the good sales, they give advice to the newcomer, but actually the way you give advice is different from the way you sell. That's the reality. So when the guy hear the advice and hear the guy doing the sales, doing the tricks, doing the small talk, and the small talk is what makes the difference. You need to hear exactly what has been said, what is the question which works, and that's what makes the difference. So if you can listen to the best guys and several best guys, because sometimes you are close to one guy, the way he sells, but you are not very close to another one. And then you have access to several people, and that's, of course, a lot better.
If we talk about AI, so because you started from regular brick and mortar business, you went to the digital. So how you founded this interesting niche, especially in advance, understanding that AI is the tool and the big thing. So was your thoughts, findings, how do you come there?
I don't know. But that's my goal. My first startup was renewables. I planned to go back to France, and so I started it in 2002, and the tariff on renewable happened 4 years later. But since I was ready, I could then join EDF, who took part of my first company, and that was anticipation. The second startup was SureTech, so we were the first digital broker in Belgium. But at that time, buying online an insurance in France, in Belgium, it was nearly impossible in 2015. It's unbelievable, but that was the reality. And again, I said, okay, there is something abnormal. It exists in other countries. It should exist here. Let's go. So it was more or less the same concept. I see in US a big market, and it is very little in Europe. So it will expand, but just copy it was not for me. We said, okay, how we can improve it, get it better. But for that, I needed the right team, and especially a fantastic CTO, because what we do at the end of the day, it's very complicated, and they have our IT team find a way to make it simple and fast.
Okay. And what was the main obstacles on the way? And also not only in this particular case, but maybe also in some previous startups, like main failures, obstacles you faced. So can you elaborate and talk about it a bit more? Because as we discussed before the recording, we both believe that the mistakes and the obstacles are one of the most important things in our lives, especially in our entrepreneurial life. They help us to become who you are. So that's super important. That's why I'm so curious about it.
I used to say in my first startup, 3 catastrophes, 1 good news. Not 3 bad news, 3 catastrophes, 1 good news. And that's really what happened. We were building plants, and the catastrophe was a main failure, a fire, all kind of stuff arriving all the time. But at the end of the day, a good news, which completely was so good that the company grow and become very profitable and very big. So this is what happened in real life for entrepreneur. So there is catastrophe because of our fault, unexpected catastrophe. So I have plenty of anecdotes. It's probably about the same with my second company. So it was a lot more digital. And I remember when I've started as an insurance broker, I said, okay, to myself, before I had power plant who burn, or nearly, let's say. So that was really risky business. Now I am a broker. The risk part is on the insurance, but not true. If you tell to somebody, I insure your house, and then you forgot to put in place the contract, but you have sent an email, I insure your house, and it burned, you lose $500,000. So again, huge risk, many small mistakes happen, and happy customer complain to the regulatory and so on. So hopefully anytime we manage to prove that we were right guys. But that's the reality of a normal business. All the time, catastrophe happen, and all of a sudden, a good news which erases all the catastrophe.
So your learning process improvements in some point. It's become profitable, and you just grow rapidly.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
But you have to be very resilient, do your best, and be humble with everything happen. Try to be as fair as possible to your customer, your supplier, on the long term that pay, for sure.
So what advice would you give to the person? It could be first-time startup founder. It could be the person who would like to leave the 9-to-5 job from C-level or whatever position and begin their entrepreneurial journey. So what advice would you give to them?
The first one, okay, you want to be an entrepreneur? Get prepared. Half an hour a day, not 5 minutes during the weekend. So if this is what you want, half an hour a day, it's not so much. And there is a lot to learn that you don't know, that's for sure, because nobody is really prepared for that, even me. I'm doing that for 21 years. I'm reading anytime I can, during vacation, during transportation, listening to podcasts. So we continuously learn. So that's my first main advice. And then it's definitively talk to people who went to the journey and get inspired from them, get advice as much as possible. I used to say the mirroring effect. Even so, you don't need necessarily advice. Find somebody to get the mirror effect. Could be your wife, it's the best scenario, but could be a friend or a co-founder.
Super. Thank you very much, Xavier. In my case, it's also my wife, and I think I'm a happy person.
As I said, it's the best scenario.
It's the best case scenario. I totally agree. But to be honest, I'm at very few people who can tell this, that they can share the business issues, discuss something business related with the wife. It's a blessing.
Okay, but we share that,
Okay.
that blessings.
Absolutely. What do you think how AI shapes the business environment and how it will change it in the nearest future?
But we are lucky in a way that the very heart of our business, Leexi, is AI. And actually, we are using already 4 different companies doing the speech to text with AI. And we are using, of course, OpenAI, so the main player. We are ready to actually test an alternative or competitor as soon as they are, let's say, quality enough to match what OpenAI is doing right now. But it is shaping, but everybody's talk about that. I just ask a few questions why things are changing that fast or could change that fast. Because right now, if we think 2 minutes, everybody is more or less without automatization, Leexi, asking question with ChatGPT, the free version. So ChatGPT learn about your job and is pretty good. So it means within 2 years, ChatGPT would be a teach to replace, or at least to do the same job as 50, 80% of the people. What will happen at that time? I don't know.
I remember when it was at the very beginning, a lot of rumors, a lot of in the newspapers, that AI will kill our jobs, AI will substitute the humans. And majority of people replied, no, nothing will happen. But I completely agree here. If we're not going to adapt, or if we're not going to learn from it and learn how to use it, we'll be substituted. It's like 100%.
Yeah,
there is
exactly. And that's another reason I like very much what we are doing, because definitively we help people using Leexi to be more efficient at their work. Because if you do 2 meetings a day and then you have the rest of the day to do the notes and a summary and email, you will be replaced. If you can do the 2 meetings and all the notes and email is done in 10 minutes, and then you can work on other stuff, do more meetings or be more efficient. And then, of course, we use the best of the AI for being more efficient, working on, in a way, more stuff.
I would like to talk about one sphere which I'm really curious about and which I think is not given enough attention in the different podcasts and just in the regular talks and so on and so forth. So if we talk about how to avoid burning out, how to keep your motivation, because of course during the startup time, you have ups and downs, you have problems, you have verbal problems, something burning, something not working, your biggest clients are going away and so on and so forth. So how to handle these things? So maybe you have some techniques you developed during your entrepreneurial career.
By the way, thanks for asking this question and saying on that, because I'm pretty sure it's one of the main or key problem that we face in our organization, and probably for the entrepreneur, there is a big risk of burnout. After 21 years of CEO, I can say that I have a tangent a couple of times burnout. And so my observation is, first one is this one. When you are at risk, it's more or less, let's say there is the three circle. One is the colleague. If you have somebody toxic in your colleague environment, if you have somebody toxic in the leadership environment, and if you are somebody toxic in the investor environment, which is likely to happen. So if that happens, then you are at risk. That's for sure. And then you have to protect yourself. And my second observation is in a company, if there is one burnout, it's a signal you have to really, not to ignore it and start to think about it. If you have several burnouts, then for sure, on the three circle, there is something which is in a way wrong, more than probably in the leadership or at the investor level, but could be at the colleague level. And you have to do something. Be very attentive to that. And my personal goal is really to focus on my team, my customer, my supplier, but on my team, I'm really attentive to create a good environment. We invest on them, we train them, we check that what they do, they are happy with that. It's a very top priority, and we spend time on that. So that's one thing. If all of your colleagues are happy, or happy as much as possible, because after 5 years in a company, you can get bored and you need to change, and then you have to do something, of course, as a manager, maybe to move from another part of the company or to help go and find another challenge. But you have to be really careful, and that's what I'm trying to make an environment which is good for everybody, and you don't have burnout. Because again, this is a very strong signal something is wrong, and you have to take action. That's my opinion. Now, how I protect myself, and because for the let's say the top management, well, again, if you have a colleague, let's say another manager which is toxic, could be very dangerous for you. And if your investor are toxic, this is very dangerous for you. That's clear. So how to protect yourself? Let's say my little advice would be one, to have a strong family around. So of course, if you have the blessing of a wife or let's say a partner, which you can share what happened and rely on, it helps a lot. That's 100% sure. The second is the sport. So I'm pretty sure. So I don't know how people who don't make sport can cope with the pressure, but I often realize that sport, even if you do it once a week or once every 2 weeks, find a sport where during the sport you completely forget everything. But this is a very, very key relief. That's my opinion. I'm doing climbing, and when you are climbing and you don't want to fall, you don't think about your problems. You just think about surviving, and
You have to focus.
That's perfect. Find a sport like this. That's perfect. So that's my second observation. So family, sport, of course, vacation. If you don't go on vacation, you will just burn. You burn first and you burn out second. I think you can still work a little bit during the vacation if you are too busy or too much pressure or whatever. But during your vacation, you need to, again, have time, like climbing or whatever, where you completely disconnect. And a few days of complete disconnection, and that saves you from the burnout as a top manager. Yeah, and then after French, that's very important.
I would like to question you about the team. So you told me that it's very important, and I completely agree with you here, very important to track the level of happiness, of burnout within the team. But do you have any, like tools we should use? And how do you help in your management team survive it, to do it? Like, you also give them, like, push them to go sports, or like what advices or what action?
Yeah, but here we have, for instance, for us on the month general, so we have a half an hour general meeting, weekly lunch meeting. So the last point is always Leexi life. And that's what we do that's what I'm doing for nearly 20, the company life. And we try to have once or twice a sport together for the one who wants. So we do a sport together. And then the good practice is to have one guy, which is a happiness officer, and in charge of organizing events for the team at a regular frequency, so that we are a team and we spend some time together in a completely relaxed atmosphere.
Do you do it offline, Xavier? Do this
Yes.
events offline?
Could be between noontime. Typically, sport is noontime or offline. But then we try to have like once a month something where again they are free to come. But that really creates good interaction. It could be a sport event or something we do together, karting. We did going to a bar together. Yes.
Some activities together with the team. Perfect. Thank you very much, Xavier, for sharing. So I have several small questions which I really like. So first one, what books or book are you given most as a gift and why? Maybe to rephrase it, what 1 to 3 books have greatly influenced your life?
On the business side.
Good.
Recently, one book I like very much is Play Bigger, which is quite interesting on the marketing side and thinking about category design and so on. Another book we, as the founder team, we was mandatory to read, and is behind me, I think, from Marty Kagan, Inspire. And let's try another book which is completely out of the box for your life. It's very interesting, very short. In English, it's The 5 Love Language. So it's from Gary Chapman. Very good book for your couple, and you can, if you understand that, for your family, for your kids, you understand that for the work as well.
How has a failure or apparent failure set up you to the latest success? What was it?
My favorite one, if I come back 20 years ago, was when I've been fired. Because then I say, okay, it's the time for me to start a company. That was the sign I was waiting for.
I love it. What advice would you give to a smart, driven college student about to enter the real life? And second part, what advice should they ignore?
For typically, I used to have a young guy this age, leaving college or university, and I trained them for the last 10 years. What I realize is what you learn at school is already updated. So they have to learn again everything when they arrive. Everything. Not again, because they never really learn what would be useful. That's when you start in a company that you start to really learn the big stuff. So of course, there is a few young guys who start company during the study and so on, but let's say they are very like a fraction of percent. For the rest, they learn when they start their training or their first job, and they have to, in my opinion, they have to work hard at this time, because they can make a huge difference in a very short period of time if they work hard at that time. So that would be my advice. Start to really not just wait that for people to give you some job to do, but try to do 3 times more, because right now we are at a very interesting time, which never happened before in history, where the kids have a lot more opportunity than their parents. When I've started my first company, let's say, even 20 years ago, it was very, very unlikely the young starter will really completely change the world. Now it's the norm, and which means the young guy can learn in 2-3 years things that their parents, it's too late for them. But if you sit and just wait, do what you are asked for to do, you will look at the world changing without really be part of it.
Excellent. And second part of the question, which advice should they ignore?
I would say one thing for me, which is very different, again, from 30 years ago, is do the best school, otherwise you are finished. It's stupid. If you do the best school, fine. If you do, let's say, medium school or a completely unknown school, go, run, rush. And when you start to work triple, and you will have a brilliant future, be a lot better than most of the people who have done the best school. So don't think your life is dead if you have not done the best school, or even if you have actually not done school at all, but you are learning a lot and working hard. You can clearly pick up, which was completely impossible 30 years ago. It's now possible.
That is a great advice, Xavier. Thank you very much. The next one. What are the bad recommendations do you hear in your professional area of expertise?
Difficult question. Yeah, I'm trying to see things positively as much as possible. So I'm just like bad advice, but okay.
That is actually a good advice. But if you always see anything from the good perspective, you actually see the possibilities, not the limitations, but the possibilities. So any advice could be good in this case.
Yeah, I'm nearly asking for my joker if I want.
2 last questions. In the last 5 years, what you become bad at saying no?
I think, and that's probably who teach me that we have to be ready to say no to a customer. If it takes too much time to close, if he's asking too much stuff, we just say no. We will find 10 more customers. And for me, that's something I learned from him. And let's say 5 years ago, it was difficult for me to say no to any customer. Now I've learned my lesson.
That is a great advice, because it's really counterintuitive, especially for those who just beginning, like, how do you say no to your customers? They bring you money, but it's absolutely true. And I could add just a few more layers to this. There is this kind of analysis which shows you like what are the 20% of the customers who are giving you 80% of a margin. So you can just focus on this type of customers and then expand only in that direction and forget about all the rest, which can increase your revenues like tenfold.
It's very interesting what you said, because it's the definition of scaling. You have found your sweet spot. What you describe is exactly found your sweet spot, scale your sweet spot. That's great.
And forget about other things. Yeah. And the last one, when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused or have lost your focus, what do you do?
Go for sport. For second vacation.
I have a friend of mine, and his reply always, go for a run. You feel stressed, go for a run. You feel in bad mood, go for a run. You understand? Go for a run. It's like all one reply for everything. And to be honest, it really works.
Yeah, I've just attended a conference who explained that even during the day, if you, after 1 hour, you work 1-2 hours, you don't go up, actually your brain is in a very slow mode. You just get up, make some 5-minute exercise, go in the street, or you come back, you're full of energy. And by the way, one thing we have done now, I look at it very differently. So we have darts in the office, and some are really good, by the way. And time to time, you could think, okay, this guy, that's the third time he's playing darts today. But actually, by doing that, is more efficient than if you stay and don't practice any sport and just try to stay focused all the day, because it's exactly the opposite which happened. Yeah. And actually you are decreasing. Yeah. And your level of attention and quality of creativity is really to the bottom. It's very fun that by living and getting to your staff the opportunity to practice some small sport activity during the day, they are more efficient. It's just everything goes in the right direction. They are happy. They practice friendship and they are more efficient.
Thank you very much, Xavier. It was a great pleasure talking to you, and you have given so many interesting advices for entrepreneurs, for the people who just going to enter this space, and even for those who are already in this space for a long time, because it's never-ending process. We're learning constantly, and I think this is which I really love in this. It's never-ending story. You can never get bored. Every single year something happening. And I'm not talking about just your niche, globally, in economic, in different techs. And everything is changing, everything is evolving, and we have to do the same to be on board.
So thank you, Serge. Your questions were pretty tough and pretty good.